our candidate, Narkola Rimbaz Elias, who actually happens to be my classmate in law school, is the leading contender in that constituency. He was eventually nominated amidst harassment and brutality. He was arrested immediately after nominations, taken to Kawempe police station, held without charge, and eventually released. But before the nominations, the chief campaigner, who is our head of mobilization in Kawempe division, Mr. Ssebunya, was also abducted in what has become the characteristic style of operations of the security forces in Uganda, by officers wearing uniforms of bearing inscriptions of Joint Anti-Terrorism Task Force, and held for some time. But when we raised an alarm and the information went out, he was released and the documents were brought to Electoral Commission and the candidate was nominated. We have had a number of our people arrested. Some have been released without charge, but it's a repeat of how the 2021 elections were conducted, how the elections of 2016 were conducted. So it has become the script and the norm of the security forces to, having taken on an anti-people stance, to be relied on to do politics on behalf of the ruling party. But with all those challenges that I have mentioned, we are confident that we have the support of the people in Kawempe North, and we are confident that with all the intimidation, the harassment, and the brutality notwithstanding, we will be able to win that election.
There had been rumor that your candidate had been abducted even before the nomination. Was there any truth in that?
No, it's the head of mobilization who had the nomination documents.
Right.
Yes, who was abducted prior to the nominations. For him, he was arrested immediately after nominations.
And what was the reason for arrest? Was he causing chaos?
Not at all. But it has become it's no longer a reason of why the person is arrested, because that is the way the NRM now prepares for elections. The explanation, which was never formal, was that he was trying to hold a rally after the nominations. But all the candidates held rallies after the nominations. And I have seen some of the media houses captured and relayed to the public the rally of the NRM candidate, the rally of some of the other candidates, but they were deliberate in making sure that they disrupt him and he's not able to carry out that rally. But others did carry out the rallies. In fact, that is why he was never charged, because if he had committed any offense, if he had gone against the law, there would have been a charge brought against him. But there hasn't been any to date. He was arrested and released without charge, clearly showing that the intention was to disrupt, paralyze, and cripple his campaign machinery.
But I was in Kawempe on that day, Wednesday, and roads were closed and so on. There's a fear of NUP. I mean, your supporters, Benjamin, come across as rowdy, violent, fearless. So, you think police just gets ready for NUP?
I think, and I hope that you have also not fallen for the regime narratives, because manipulation of situations is part of how fascist and dictatorial regimes thrive. I can tell you confidently that none of the NUP supporters has been charged or convicted for engaging in any electoral malpractices, has been convicted for any rowdiness or violence in elections. The Supreme Court of Uganda, on various occasions, both in Dr. Besigye versus Kaguta Museveni and Electoral Commission, and Mama Mbabazi versus Kaguta Museveni and Electoral Commission, has had the opportunity and occasion to hold that indeed it is NRM which has relied on violence in electoral processes. So the narrative that our supporters come off as rowdy is just part of the regime propaganda machinery to discredit.
Or maybe you don't know them, Benjamin.
No, I do.
They wear these red. They wear the red berets.
Just like the NRM put on yellow.
And even on social media, they can come across as very aggressive people.
Not necessarily. Yes. So and in any case, by the way, aggressiveness is not an offense. If anybody commits an offense, there are established mechanisms for dealing with breach of the law. But arresting people, holding them without trial, releasing them without charge has never been an acceptable standard, both in our constitution and in any other law. Has never been an acceptable approach to dealing with fear of disruption. Our people are not aggressive, they are enthusiastic. They are not aggressive, they are enthusiastic, and it's acceptable in every political environment. If you don't have, maybe it is the hired supporters normally who are not enthusiastic, because for them it does not go to the core of their belief. But our supporters are driven by the love they have for the idea and the organization. So enthusiasm, even in games, if you go to a football match and you find people who are not cheering, you should be worried about their loyalty to the team. Yes, I can state with confidence that our people are enthusiastic but not aggressive.
Professor Emily Comfort Marashito, I don't know if you followed the by-election in Kawempe. It has been, as Benjamin will not accept, but has been close to rowdy. And is there a case, you're a media professor, is there a case for NUP to rebrand, or are they suffering from state violence?
Thank you. First of all, I think it's important to also mention why we are having a by-election there. That it forms part of the polity, and we are having a by-election there because somebody who was holding that seat died, and the circumstance of their death and how they got to be in prison for a very long time and so on, all really demonstrate the nature of our politics. And so it's only
You're
fair.
saying there's an injustice there that has not been addressed.
I don't know, Oscar, if there is any way to discuss our elections without talking about injustice around it. When you think about the level playing field, when you think about the nature of the candidates, you think about the outcome of the elections, the complaints that surround the election outcomes, the issues of legitimacy, the role of money in these elections, the role of the security personnel. When you think and of course also the conduct of the Electoral Commission itself, when you think about all of these and put them together, it's difficult to not have justice as an issue of that election, because if justice is fairness, then we have to think about that as well. And so it is easy to say NUP supporters are just rowdy people, the public is fearing them, but I think sometimes we underestimate the environment, how much the environment conditions the politics. And so what we are seeing, especially around in the central area, is the response towards a perception of injustice in the way that people are elected, in the way that our electoral process is practiced. And so I've been a student, by the way, I chair the Media Democracy and Development Research Group at UCU, and so my business is to study media and development and democracy. And so when you follow right from 2001 especially, the nature of the elections, and even when you go to just the by-elections, their character, the character of by-elections, the character of national elections, the presidential ones, all of them tend to give you the idea that the environment is conditioning our politics. And so it's easy to blame those who are responding to what they find to be unfair political processes. And the rest of us who can't be part. By the way, I was impressed that up to 10 candidates were nominated. Sometimes when you look at the character of politics, you think that who are these brave people who are still going who are still going into politics, because I don't think I have the energy and anything to even brave it. So you begin to look at these people who are going into it as some sort of special brave people. And in by-elections, in many of the elections also, you find that the real battle happens these days within the primaries. Why? Of the NRM. Why? Because again, there is this perception that once you win that party flag, it's almost a given that you will get through in at least many of the constituencies. There will be outliers like Kawempe North, where the people outside of the NRM can be confidently speaking here and saying we are in the lead. I don't know how they know that already, but in most cases, if you're an NRM candidate, you automatically feel that you have now won the race. Yeah.
Well, it's a good point you bring up, because when they have their own primaries, it's also another war zone completely.
Yeah.
The NRM.
Where there is no aggressiveness.
or should I say where aggressiveness is allowed?
Yeah.
You're most welcome to Gang, late to Mwalimu's class, Honorable Kasule Ssebunya. Welcome to Gang.
Thank you, sir. It's always a privilege to be here. I'm sorry I'm late. Some of it was for my making. I stood to watch Trump still still responding to what happened last night. I call it night because it was night. So he was still talking about it. So when those few minutes made me lose a lot of time.
Well,
I'm here.
Yes. Well, we had a chat about it at the beginning of the show, and Noavine Josti, one of our regular listeners, says, I liked the way Zelensky put his foot down and defended his position. It's like those guys had planned to devour him. It was a 5-0 Zelensky, Noavine says. Nice shot, though, despite the late night television viewing. So I hope some people have already told you.
I know, but anyway, it was, I think, for the first time where people don't camouflage, put on good faces when they're discussing the real issues. It was open in the media. Even the most developed media was shocked that this was going on in front of them. And maybe if somebody in the media had their way out, they would have said, please, can you go behind and discuss it? Then you come and give us the clean news. So otherwise, it shows a lot, and maybe we should learn from it.
Joseph Otieno, did UPC manage to field a candidate in Kawempe?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I should reword my question to begin with. Did UPC 1 or UPC 2 manage to field candidates for Kawempe?
There is official what is known as UPC 1, that is the excellent fast robotic government of 1962 to 71, and there is another one, UPC 2, of excellent deliveries between 1981 and 85, notwithstanding the mess that NRM was subjecting the people here in Luweero, up and including near Kawempe. But the UPC 1 and 2 that you refer, I don't belong to any of those. I belong to Uganda People's Congress, the mainstream national political party. Now, yes, unfortunately, we do not have a candidate on a UPC ticket, but we have somebody very close to UPC, that is Eddie, the independent Eddie Maitum, who is an Okeo in Kawempe. Eddie is Mama Miriam's second son, fantastic guy, and he's offered himself as an independent. I didn't discuss this with him, I just saw it in the press. But by the way, he's generally a very, very deep guy, very religious, he's a bishop. And considering that Kawempe is where his mother comes from, Emily is right to talk about being too early to speculate which direction it might go. But I think Eddie will have a good run, because he's a very composed, very balanced guy, very deep. But of course, because of the nature of our polity, sometimes We will pick personalities, we'll pick names, and not go into the details and depth of what programs. And I think if you consider the mess in this Kampala, you need UPC values, and I think the nearest UPC values that would be presented by AD in the event that he won. But of course, that's too early for that. As a political party, unfortunately, because of some of the points raised by Emily, UPC is not clearly in position to be very consistent as far as some of these deliveries and deliverables are concerned. And I think I already saw on social media a number of people saying, was Eddie betraying the party? I'm sure possibly he was rather not sure to whom he should go for the ticket. Should he go to his own brother Jimmy, who is illegitimate officially, or to Court of Appeal ruled against Jimmy. He's not our official leader, but he's controlling Uganda House by force, thanks to his some other networks. Or Peter Walobiri, who, since he stole the elections, he's an absent presence on the political scene, which is a real shame to this party and a real shame to this country, considering the manner in which NRA now has this capacity to present the kind of impunity that it did, particularly, unfortunately, against NUP candidates and leaders, particularly in Uganda. And without prejudice, I say that very emphatically and very deliberately, because people talk sectarianism and identity politics, but it's NRA that practice that. Some of the things that is being suggested by our NUP colleague about whether or not their members are aggressive, I think, Emily, you're right again to talk about this. It's not all about perception. I was at Kawempe at the vigil for the late MP, and you could see the anger in the population, the anger amongst the young people about the circumstances of the death of this guy. And it was extremely a sensitive moment, and that's why the insensitivity that continued all the way to Budu Massacre around this guy's burial, and this is something which is very real and very recent. It's not surprising that NUP members, and particularly the young members, would be generally quite annoyed. Now, part of the contradiction is that NRA is lucky that they've been around for too long, 40 years. So if the young people of Kawempe and the young people of this country, particularly the young people of Uganda, were to borrow my age and see the experience and narrative of what NRA was in Uganda and at Kampala, and the claim that they were having, that they were fighting for, you couldn't compare the NRA arguments of 40 years ago, 35 years ago, to the NRA that is actually busy beating up candidates, including here in Kawempe, literally kidnapping a candidate. That's absolutely unacceptable. Those things that they call drones that I don't like are referring to those vehicles. I was effectively kidnapped from my room in Micho in November 1987 and safe housed and narrowly escaped from the NRA brutality. I didn't expect that I would return to this and it would happen in Kampala at Kawempe. So my worry is that beyond whatever has happened, that this is a manifestation of possibly what is yet to come at the next election, which is basically hardly 10 months away. I think it's deliberate intimidation. I think it's total blackmail of the mindset of our people. I think it's to punch and push into fear. And for those of us who are absolute Democrats, we worry that in the absence of level playing field in our polity, the absence of legitimacy amongst the political class, this thing is going to breed apathy. And for scholars like Emily, and for people like me who are breeders of conviction for the future of our country, we should be very, very worried. Younger people, as Emily, imagine Professor Emily is concerned that she can't even imagine associating with politics and politicians. What about average young Ugandans who must claim this country and who must claim and make sure that NRA guys are not selling to Washington, considering what happened to Trump, because this country belongs to them? And if those people are to express themselves democratically, and instead of going to the bush like Kabamba and breaking people's necks, what alternative do you give to our people? Yesterday I was at a different program with somebody who's a researcher, and she says apparently, Oscar, that her research around Kampala, possibly predominantly Buganda, parts of the west, and I think a section of the north, I think part of West Nile actually, where they've so far visited. But the majority of the people are so apathetic that people are now telling them that there is no need to vote. The risks are that as we present Kawempe, you make the works of the Ochenos, people like me who fought and who campaigned for a very long time, that let's let go of the gun. Let's push politics of ideas and politics of issues. That let young people vent, if you call it their anger, through issues, and let us try and seek reconciliation. Let's try and seek a democratic process. Let's learn to win, and let's learn to lose, and let's learn to look for leaders who are good losers. That you lose like the Ochenos, then you accept that you'll play second fiddle, even if it's to a terrible regime until next time. But that you learn to become a responsible winner, like UPC always does, so that when you win for everybody else. Young Ugandans, who now are the majority of our people, need to engage much more constructively in politics. But if you see what's happening in Kawempe, you ask, like Emily, Professor, is saying, is it really worth it to go and rally around Ocheno in Nagongera because I fear that the next thing will be drones coming to me in Nagongera? It's absolutely shameful. As I said, I genuinely didn't know that I would expect this at this stage. And particularly final one, Oscar, if you consider the goodwill that NRA had in Buganda as they're building their foundations, and if you consider the proximity of Kawempe, I don't know who advises Mr. Museveni, and I'm here to give him free advice, and please, free advice. If I was advising him, you can still retain power and play safe and play nice without necessarily brutalizing people. The kind of advice I would give him to leave a court-martial alone to discipline Iran soldiers and not try and militarize Ugandans. Yes.
Honorable Robert Kasule Ssebunya.
Yes, please.
Do the violence in Kawempe, a lot of people attribute it to the state. Do you think it makes your party look bad? I mean, you fielded a candidate. I think, is it Ms. Nambi?
Yes, Nambi, the NRM flag bearer.
The NRM flag bearer. If you have violence in Kawempe before a by-election, do you think that harms your party? Because people, Joseph here is attributing to NRM. He's not talking to Museveni and not to the state.
Yes. This man is a god or something. It's very god. He was in Intungam and in Kole sub-region, monitoring, doing oversight on PDM and generally going around the country. I think he had nothing to do with it. Police was deployed essentially to control the traffic. This is a small place called Kawempe, and I've been in Kawempe this week like 4 times because we were preparing for Prime Minister and others to go and check on the roads in Kawempe, which she didn't, but she checked on roads in Chira. So I know the temperature.
There's a road back here behind Kamocha Market.
Yes.
That one she needs to check it. Very urgent.
Yeah, there are many roads that have been.
She should leave the roads that are
You may need to have it by election.
Because of time. No, there are many roads that are under construction in Kampala of recent, and of course
This one, nothing is
partnership
happening
with
to
our
it. It's terrible.
Development partners, one by one, we'll handle them, but the stock of bad roads is overwhelming.
Yes.
So I know the political temperatures in Kawempe, just like we saw it on TV. The NRM, the party I belong to, was also shocked. We have witnessed, have been involved for almost 20 years in politics. We do nominations everywhere. This one was one of its kind, where we saw people fighting with the police. In fact, somebody said this was like it happened with Trump and Zelensky. Right in front of cameras. We don't know why it happened, but as we say, police will have to explain. this is a civil activity. Much as you are there to control traffic and whatever, why go to that extent of putting cannons?
I've been given a correction. It's called Old Kira Road.
Okay.
Old
Kira Road.
So take the Prime Minister there, please.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I pass there every day. I know the road. And we use it most frequent in order to cut the other traffic of the Upper Kira Road. So this was a civil function. Even the Electoral Commission, if you started blaming them, why, I think they were not aware of what was happening outside. And police is here to blame of mishandling such a simple exercise. And on social media, it almost looks like a war zone. Well, but to move from Chigogwa to the city center, you take 2 hours traffic. And of course, the posture of the political players also plays a part. And at this point, I would encourage our friends in NUP. You know, you're enthusiastic and sometimes aggressive, but help the people of Kampala, the northern end of Kampala. We don't need traffic jams caused by excited, enthusiastic supporters. We all want to picket in town to show support, to show vehicles, social media, pictures and whatever. But if they say there is no picketing, please go to one place and hold a rally. It will not do you bad. And with the time I've realized that some people like these aggressive, enthusiastic supporters, show support, but to a certain extent, we need somebody to represent the people, all of them. In fact, we come with flags, but we represent everybody. I can't say I'm here NRM, I was in Parliament, and I represented the people of NRM. No, that doesn't work. You represent everybody. And when people are coming to you, they don't come with their flags, or they don't come with their cards and say, I am so and so, can you help me? I've lost a person. I'm here, I don't have money to take school fees for my children. Please, they come as with people with problems. So they don't come with their problems with their party cards. So this is a person who is going to represent Kawempe. The Kawempe I know stems from Kawempe, the Kawempe of Bwaise, behind Bwaise, and it goes up to Chanja.
Very diverse.
It is very diverse. Yeah. It's not only at that point of where they were being nominated. So you could even say, after this nomination, I'll drive to Chanja, field something, and find my people and talk to them. But what I think, and I heard on the videos, is that the candidate I knew, who is my friend for a long time, Narukola, of NUP, who turned the NUP 3 months ago. I know he was DP, I know he was everything. Who turned you? So I don't think he wanted to have a confrontation with police. And I don't think the police wanted to confront him. But because the managers of the campaign of Narukola wanted to picket, to go walk from the nomination center and walk to where they were going supposed to have a rally.
If you don't mind, could we say that really the lead people to take responsibility here are the Electoral Commission, because really they're the ones in charge of this process and they failed?
No, there's little they can do away from the polling center.
True.
There is very little, because as I said, this is a very congested area. They wanted people to come and they limited them, told them in time, please come maximum 4 people. Get nominated, walk away, drive away, and then have your rally somewhere. And they were not even in control of the places they were going to have rallies. So I think, and what I saw on social media was, immediately after the nomination of my friend Narukola, he wanted to walk, have a procession. And in the process of stopping the procession, the police was used a lot of force.
Brutal. You do not say the word.
force. Okay, brutal, yes, because it is what everybody saw. And unfortunately, that will play a big part in this whole process. But with the confidence I can say, everybody is annoyed, including my party leaders. Why and how? People must explain. You must not have this blanket blame the president. The president is not a god. He can't be everywhere. These were people in uniform. People in uniform are supposed to behave like people in uniform. We have sang the song of professionalizing the army, professionalizing the police. So they should know how to handle such cases without making
Robert, I have a comment here from a regular listener on social media. Says excuse me, says you cannot deny one Uganda to use a facility after nomination today and allow another Uganda to use the same facility ushered in and protected by all sorts of security agencies. So it seems like your candidate came, nearly in armored car and something, and then others were not allowed.
Our candidate came, got nominated, and drove away, and then went and held a rally. And I think there was no altercations or fighting of some sort, which is a good thing, which we would have wished also Nalukola to have. Otherwise, it was not good and does not help at the NRM. And I know if we had no internal contradictions also, because we also have a candidate, a stronger one, called Kaladi, who is independent, who is NRM, who has also refused to get her. Okay, they have engaged her, but her right to stand.
Just quick comment.
Let me just complete it. Let me complete this one. But we are going to win this constituency without any fighting and violence. We can easily take Kawempe North. So we are still engaging her, but otherwise we are very confident that we can take Kawempe without violence, without using underhand methods, and everything can still go well. But otherwise,
let's get to the information from.
I just wanted to share information, which I'm not sure. I don't know if you watched the news yesterday. The independent candidate you just mentioned, Kaladi, was also crying about the brutality meted out to her campaign team by the Joint Anti-Terrorism Task Force in Kawempe. She even went ahead and mentioned names of the commanders. Maybe being from the NRM, she has the privilege of knowing those commanders.
People are camouflaging.
And so to say that that incident of the meting out brutality to Narukora is not an isolated incident. That there is a pattern of violence. Even for our case, it was preceded by the arrest of the members of the election management committee, the raid on our headquarters, and the threats from the command of the armed forces saying NUP will whip. So there's a pattern of violence which has a relationship with the politics. And that coupled with the fusion that we have in our country, where you are saying that Museveni was in Ntungamo, but he doesn't have to be physically present in a place, but that there's a fusion between his personality and the state of Uganda. That when you are involved in an election as his opponent, or as someone that his political structure does not support, then the army and the police who have become by extension part of the political machinery of Museveni believe that they have a duty to make sure they stop you. That explains the violence in all these elections. Because what interest would the police have in an election? Police is not one of the parties in an election, but because by extension it has become part of the political machinery, it feels it is duty bound to make sure they stop you and give an opportunity to the other person who is politically aligned to have leverage over you.
Yeah, but we all know.
And in addition, I have here a comment from on X from another listener who's saying if Nalukola was planning to have a procession and was handled that way, how do you justify the procession of the NRM candidate?
That's what I'm saying, that the police cannot be separated from the electioneering exercise in Uganda.
Why not?
Because one, much as they're not supposed to take sides,
They
they're
shouldn't.
supposed to. Of course, they're involved. We know how Ugandans behave. So the professors there said the environment in which we grow sometimes also makes the people who they are. Our youth tend to want to engage with all sorts of things. We know how the man said their supporters are enthusiastic. You know how they want to engage with the enthusiastic supporters with the general crowd. The police must be involved. Guide the population. Pass here. Do this. And once the electoral commission says, "Please come to," then who will be there now to say, "We have come 20 or 15 or 1,000"? The police is there to put those orders of electoral commission in place. It's not that when they say come to, the people will come to. They will come 1,000. So the police is always involved. What my best reasoning would be, let them not be partisan. Let them handle the population the best way possible without the violence. And everybody agrees with that. And for everybody to blame it on NRM, then the president, it's as if we sit somewhere and then command the police react like this, because we don't.
Maybe that's what we think. Maybe that's what we think. Prof.
I'm in the movement. I'm not a simple man who stays in the village somewhere and I don't know what's happening. Nobody in NRM, nobody, even if you ask the Secretary General, that predicted what will happen in Kawempe. He also saw it like I saw it on TV. So to say that you, the NRM, you, the Secretary General, you are the people.
Okay. I'll come back to you on that one.
It's far-fetched. I think.
Let me ask Prof. Marashto here. There was a journalist that was injured. I think he has a damaged eye now.
Badly, yes.
Yes. And let me also just say about as he's coming in, what we saw on video was immediately the violence started. People started shouting, "The stones have started." So ultimately there's a possibility that maybe a policeman mishandled the journalist, or the stones, the volleys that were coming from the public towards the police and what they were doing hit the journalist. And that needs thorough investigation. We sympathize with the journalist. He must be treated. Somebody must take responsibility. And I think there must be an engagement between the police, the parties, and the leadership of parties, and in a way to control their support, enthusiastic supporters. And that is all I have to say. Okay?
Thank you. Yes. It's good that our NRM colleague, I'm an academic, so I don't take sides. I speak as objectively as possible. But I think it is not fair to say that nobody predicted that there would be any kind of over enthusiasm, if I may qualify it. Yes, I started this my submission earlier by saying that it is difficult to discuss this election without thinking of why we are having a by-election. So if you're a good election manager, you should be able to know that it would not be an election as usual, that there might be episodes of things like those that would erupt, and you would prepare accordingly. To say that it is up to NUP to check their enthusiastic supporters and control and whatever, where would that place the role of the security agencies who are deployed there? Because that would, and how do they conduct themselves? I think we must always think about the role of trust in all this, that the population probably is not at their best moment with trust, that they will always trust that the right thing will be done, that if they go to a scene like that, they will not be mishandled, that they should also go prepared to face something like that. And because of the fatigue sometimes people have over experiencing some of these things over and over, they might come actually prepared. So it's one thing to look at this as a one-off event, but also it's another to see the patterns of the past and see how much of this is actually a repeat of past mistakes. And if it is a repeat of past mistakes, then we cannot feign ignorance and say that we never imagined this kind of thing would happen. I think as we head towards the journalists being hurt, journalists are casualties in these things because they're human beings who unfortunately have to do their job in the middle of this chaos when they happen. And it is only a given that they are going to suffer some consequence when things are not handled well, just like every other person who might suffer those consequences. So issues of double standards are not new. I don't even, sometimes I was telling my editor last week that I think I should stop my column because I'm really exhausted. And part of the reason is that you feel like these things have been said over and over and over time, and you're talking about the same things, and people get tired. You begin to sound like a broken record. The discussion around these things are not new. Double standards have been part of our politics for a long time. Patronage has been part of our politics for a long time. And all of these other fearful citizens, I think the researcher you're mentioning who talked about West Nile and was saying that they probably should not just vote. In the past, there have been cases of people even claiming that drones are checking if satellites are in villages, checking if you vote right or not. All of these things have been in existence. So let's just say that incrementally our politics acquires some elements of disruption that are not healthy for it. And when people have not been getting what they trust should be the right thing, they're bound to react a certain way that is not desirable. And it's part of the debate in the media studies we've had for a very long time, the idea that the genocide in Rwanda happened because the media did something about it. And in scholarly terms, you would say that, okay, the media may have played a role, but what was going on prior to that moment? What was being ignored up to that point? What were people dealing with up to that point? I think if you don't ask the why questions of the before, you're bound to blame this one episode and this one event and say this was just a one-off thing that was mishandled. But most times, there are very many signs that we can see that we are interacting with, but that we just ignore because parts of them have been normalized. And we begin to see them as, these two will pass. And they pass, they go, and you go to the next one, and the next one, and the next one.
May I just
just before Joseph had wanted to make a comment.
I just wanted to ask
just 1 minute.
This time, around Kawempe by-election, if you have to have good research, practical research, please get out and see the people yourselves. Otherwise, the fatigue is not only on the population, it's only on the professionals themselves. The police themselves may be fatigued. They must have moved this man from an operations from somewhere, then in the middle of Kampala, and then everybody's, you could say, is fatigued. And if I tell him, I'm a product of a by-election. I know the politics around by-elections. It's not only it doesn't only happen to maybe people now seeing NUP. Even where there is NRM only, by-elections are always like a battlefield. So it is the population themselves. You can't say somebody brings the fatigue to the people. No, everybody around this time is a bit of fatigue.
Robert is combative as well. Let's Benjamin, final comment, and then we'll come back to you, and then we'll change topics. But it seems that NRM has not sorted it out completely. Because some people are saying Hanifa Karadi is going to win Kawempe against the flag bearer of NRM. Is that possible?
Well,
So it's the
in Kayunga, for example,
path is not very clear.
in Kayunga, for example, the results were altered at the point of declaration. So if you're asking about a possibility where NRM is involved, it is a possibility that cannot be ruled out, but not on account, but not on account of being voted for by the people.
Speaking as a lawyer, you should. Is that a fact? Is it verifiable?
Yes, it is. It is verifiable. Yeah. So but I think what the NRM cannot walk away from is the culture of political violence that it has propagated through the years. It is not restricted to Kawempe. And the other day, when there was a raid at the NUP headquarters, I was among the first people that reached there towards the end. Were 3 people. Myself, the Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, and the leader of opposition. Now, when the people who had been conducting a search wanted, what they called the search, wanted to leave, they didn't want their faces captured by the media. What do these security men do? They started beating journalists. They chased them up to the roundabout of Waise, so that these people can walk out. The NRM regime has made violence part of their political machinery. It's unfortunate that for them it's a normal thing to beat a journalist. It's a normal thing. There's another journalist called Ashraf Kasri. During the presidential elections, his head was shattered in a similar manner like the one in Kawempe the other day. So these are not isolated incidents. There is a pattern of violence meted out by the security forces, by extension, as an armed wing of the political machinery of Museveni. I think we need to come to a realization, especially for the people that are developing apathy, that this culture cannot be wished away, and that there's not going to be, well, God is our God is a God of miracles. There's not going to be a point where Museveni abandons this culture, because this is the culture that has sustained him in power. Okay. But he can only be stopped by the people of Uganda through regime change. But without that, because you cannot, if food is what keeps you moving, then you cannot. If you stop eating, you will die. So this is part of what sustains the regime, and I don't think they can abandon it.
Okay, I mean, at one point you say that they can change the result at the
because they have done it before,
and then at the next stage you say regime change. So you're like presenting impossibilities.
No, they are not the first organization in the world to thrive through manipulation of electoral processes.
Okay.
But
no, don't look at Joseph Otieno.
But it never stops such regimes.
He's a lawyer because he knows whatever was said of UPC was absolute.
It never stops such. It never stops such regimes from collapsing. You know, in Tunisia, the man used to get 90%, but the population rose up against him.
Okay.
So the change of regime is not restricted to only the works of Byabakama, but the resilience of the population can make any strong regime collapse.
Robert, final words on this topic, and the questions to you are two. The one, are you going to call for prosecution of those people who brutalized others, who brutalized a journalist, to getting an eye smashed? And secondly, your party doesn't seem very well sorted between the two candidates.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was in Kawempe, as I said, and because we have two candidates in Kawempe who are NRM, non-NRM, and what I saw is that Kaladi was having more better traction on the ground than our official NRM candidate. I would encourage our officials in NRM to go on the ground. It is only 2 weeks. such a short time. And
When is the election?
the election is around 17th, 13th? March 13th. So it's almost less than 2 weeks. We need foot soldiers on the ground, not foot soldiers like in a camouflage of uniforms and berets, but people to go Kakuyege we know, and canvass for our candidate, and in a civil way. Please walk and because some of these candidates look new to the people. They have just so there's need to gain more traction, but also we condemn, we detest what happened to Narukola. It is very bad. I've known him, he's my friend, we talk, but what happened was very bad, and we need an investigation. And without missing words, I know an investigation will take place, and those who did what they did. But also, what is at play is that ever since social media arrived on the scene, we have seen security forces fight with journalists. Why? The security forces fear to be captured in action. And two, the population have also started throwing volleys, or the enthusiast supporters have known that when you throw volleys to the police, they'll respond with violence. That interplay must also be investigated. There must be negotiation, there must be engagement. Please, this is not the way forward. If in a simple by-election, in a simple capture, on social media, Uganda looks like a war zone, what will happen in a general election? So it's in everybody's interest to control our enthusiasm, to control our violence, even the population themselves. Yeah. Please stop throwing volleys to the police. You know what they'll respond with. They'll not respond with sticks, they'll respond with the weapons officially given to them. So I think that interplay, it is in everybody's. I enjoy campaigning. I've campaigned like for 7 times through by elections, then elections, and I have enjoyed peaceful campaigns because you also enjoy it. You feel the people, they love you, and you enjoy that love. I cannot enjoy that love when I'm receiving volleys of stones running across streets. No. So
you organize a meeting for NRM guys in Chankwanz and tell them your good experience.
I have talked to the people. I have been in, and I've been of all places, an MP in Nansana municipality. But you have never had me stones being thrown at me, running across streets, being chased by voters. I chase voters because what I preach in the population is, please, let us have the peace. People will enjoy the politics. People will enjoy this engagement. We have always called other party supporters to even come to our elections, and they ask questions. Say, please come and ask, because I'm going to represent the whole of you. And I think Narukola is in shock. And even everybody's, somebody talked about Kalani also being harassed. She's also in shock because she doesn't expect, nobody expects violence in their campaigns.
Thank you. Emily, you want to, just a small mention?
One thing,
but yes, I have Edward saying the role of security agencies in the electoral process has always been a thorn for NRM. Overzealous and ill-advised intervention plays into the hands of opposition sympathies.
That's correct, actually. But what I wanted to say is the role of social media. He says that ever since social media is here, journalists, most of those things are not necessarily even journalists. You know, when we were younger, I don't know about you people, I never heard of so many people dying. These days I get death messages every time. I've grown up because I say it's because I've grown up and I must get the message. So before that I thought people didn't die, but now I think everybody's dying every day. Why? Because I can see it, and that has happened to us as well. It's not because in 2001, 2006 21 or whatever, violence was not there, but because the extent to which these things were exposed was even more limited than it is today. And the people who put some of these things on social media are not even journalists, because they are in the vicinity. They are able to have the gadget that allows them to do what a journalist would have done. So I feel sorry for people who think that gagging the media is the solution. It's not, because we are bound to have these things.